Don't forget to check out and order your copy of our latest book, Stiff Arming Football Myths. You can find these available in both paperback and PDF form on our website at footballgameplan.com/books. The 2015 CFL season gets underway this Thursday as we kick off our coverage with a Week 1 wraparound, starting with that Thursday night opener between Ottawa and Montreal. And let's look at some coaching points for both teams in this ball game, starting with the Red Blacks. Early defensive wins, I believe, will be key. If they're able to get off the field on second down very early in this ball game, it builds that confidence and it bodes well for their chances of winning the ball game at the end. And they have to avoid those expansion mistakes we saw last season, year one into their existence. A lot of penalties, a lot of self-inflicted wounds. They avoid those going into year two. I think they're going to be a much better team. And the red zone efficiency will be key. If they can pay off those drives with touchdowns instead of field goals, they have an excellent chance of knocking off Montreal. And for the Alouettes in this ball game, they have to hit the ground running. I'm looking at the ground game for Montreal with Terrell Sutton and also Stephen Logan. Both guys not only can run the football, but they're effective receivers out of the backfield. But if they can get the ground game going, it makes life easier for Jonathan Crompton in that passing offense. And the next man up has to step up. You look at the injury list of the Alouettes, a lot of guys are on that 6-game injury list, so they're a little bit banged up coming into this ball game. So the next man up has to step up and bring their A game. And I look at the second level of the Alouettes defense. I believe that's a strength for this football team. And even without Kyrese Hebert, the talented linebacker, who I think will be a big loss for this defense, they still have more than enough talent to have a lot of success versus Ottawa. Looking at some X factors in this ball game, starting with the Red Blacks, their offensive line was a weak spot last year, and you want to see how have they grown in year two. How well this offensive line plays could ultimately determine how well this football team does this season. And for the Alouettes, they brought in two big-time free agent slot backs and future Hall of Famers, Nick Lewis from the Calgary Stampeders and Fred Stamps from the Edmonton Eskimos. How much of an impact can they make in Week 1 and throughout the course of the 2015 season? Because, again, this is an Alouettes football team that lost a lot of big playmakers at the receiver position, so these two guys were brought in to have instant impacts from day one. I like the Alouettes in this ball game. Despite coming into this matchup versus Ottawa a little bit banged up on both sides of the ball, I still think they have more than enough talent at quarterback, at receiver, and also defensively to knock off the Red Blacks in Week 1. We have a rematch of the 2014 Grey Cup as Hamilton takes on Calgary, and for the Ticats in this game, the defensive line pressure will be key. They'll be without one of their top pass rushers in Eric Norwood, so they'll need to find ways to disrupt the timing of the Stamps offense. Hamilton also has one of the best special teams units in the CFL, and it'll be important for them to win 2 out of the 3 facets of a football game. And I think they have a great opportunity to win the special teams one. And quarterback Zach Caleros picking up where he left off last season. He played some great ball for the Tiger Cats, which allowed them to get to the Grey Cup. They'll need more of the same in this one, especially limping a bit defensively. For Calgary, it's about controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. That was their claim to fame last season. They beat you up with the running game and smothered you defensively with their talented defensive front. And I'm interested to see how the Stamps involve rookie phenom wide receiver Lamar Durant into the game plan. Durant has good all-around game, and in my opinion, he's a future star in this league. Tempo is everything in the CFL, and the best way to test the depth of an opposing defense is to make it a track meet. No Eric Norwood, no Rico Murray, and if I'm Calgary, I'm speeding up the pace of the game, forcing Hamilton to go even deeper into their depth chart than usual. And some X factors in this game to keep an eye on. You look at the defensive line for the Tiger Cats. We talked about Eric Norwood being out this game, and you look at Lyndon Gaidosh, the defensive tackle. We know he can get pressure from within, but who can they rely on a consistent basis on the outside? Staying with the defensive line for the Stampeders X factor, keep an eye on that pass rush. I love what they bring to the table up front. Guys like Charleston Hughes and also Frank Beltry out of Towson. Those guys, I believe, can definitely find their way to the quarterback, and if they can get into the face of Zach Caleros, it goes a long way in helping them have a chance to knock off Hamilton. I like Calgary in this ball game. Just a very strong football team, top to bottom, offensively, defensively. They can run the football. They can throw the football very well, even without a guy like Nick Lewis. They got better, I believe, in the offseason with young talent like Durant. And defensively, we talked about how well they can get after the quarterback. I think they will do a great job in knocking off the Tiger Cats. Edmonton travels to Toronto, and for the Eskimos in this game, finding creative ways to achieve offensive balance is huge. Big loss with the injury to running back John White, who will be on the 6-game injury list, and they'll have to find ways to compensate for the loss of their talented tailback to keep the Argos defense honest. I would also go aggressive early on defense. Toronto loves a short passing game, so I would make it a point to challenge them on the outside while getting extra pressure up the middle to dictate where they go with the football. Edmonton also has to make plays in space. They're facing two of the most dangerous slot backs in the game in Chad Owens and Andre Dury. Making plays in space is critical versus Toronto. For the Argonauts in this ballgame, I think they'll have to work deep to short in order to loosen things up. We know they love the short passing game, but I think in order to get that done, they have to back up that S defense by going deep, intermediate, and then working your short passing game. Now on defense, I look at the secondary having to get physical with the bigger wide receivers of the Eskimos. Edmonton will try to play above the rim, but that'll be hard to do if the Argos are able to compete physically on the outside. And offensively, it's about maximizing opportunities, paying off in the red zone with no wasted possessions. Moving the football versus Edmonton is very tough, so when you do, you must come away with points. The biggest X factor in this game for Edmonton will be the running game. Chad Simpson is a talented tailback, and he'll have to carry the load this week versus a very good Argos front seven. And for Toronto, you look at the quarterback play, whether that's Trevor Harris, and if he's struggling, they throw in Adrian McPherson. Both guys are replacing a very good quarterback, MVP type quarterback in Ricky Ray. If the Argos can get consistent play from the quarterback position, they can win this ball game. I like Edmonton in this ballgame. I believe the Eskimos defense will cause a lot of problems for that passing attack with Trevor Harris and the Toronto Argonauts. And on the offensive side, look for Trevor Riley's legs to be the reason why they're able to compensate for the loss of John White in the backfield along with Chad Simpson. And finally, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers take on the Saskatchewan Roughriders in Regina. And for the Bombers, their defensive line dominating is going to be key. I like what they have up front from a personnel standpoint, and they have to stay in the face of Riders quarterback Darian Durant. Offensively, it's about taking small bites of the elephant. What I mean by that is don't always go for the chunk play. There's nothing wrong with a 10 to 14 play drive to help wear down a defense, and it's important that they make the plays that are there to be made. The Bombers will be faced with more than enough opportunities versus Saskatchewan to make a play. They just can't allow themselves to not make it. Now for the Riders in this game, I hope we see their offensive line get back to what we saw 2 years ago. Now granted, it's not the same group, but when their offensive line was dominant, they steamrolled teams en route to the Grey Cup. And I'm interested to see how effective running back Antonio Allen can be as well. He had some success last season, and his ability to run effectively takes a lot of the pressure off of Durant in that passing game, and they must avoid self-inflicted wounds. I think that's critical for this football team. When the Riders aren't beating themselves, they are very tough to beat. One of the biggest X factors for the Bombers is their offensive lineman, their rookie offensive lineman, Suka Chung out of Calgary. I saw him live at the Super Regional Combine, and he put on a clinic with his athleticism, and it'll be interesting to see how he starts in this ball game, and it bodes well for their future moving forward. And for the Riders, you look at the passing game. We know a lot of what they do offensively, a lot of their success is tied to how well they can throw the football and protect the ball. So I think if they're having success in the passing game, it goes a long way in helping them win this ball game versus Winnipeg. I like the Riders in this ball game in what will be, in my opinion, the most entertaining game of the weekend. I do think the Riders right now have more than enough talent to knock off Winnipeg. Now let's take a look at my week one fantasy starting lineup, and here are some guys that I think you should definitely start this week. Bo Levi, the quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders. Even the Eskimos defense, I think they'll have a great showing this game versus Toronto. And here's some sits for this week. I would stay away from Trevor Harris, the quarterback of the Argos, Devin Bailey from the Eskimos, Fred Stamps as well from the Alouettes, and also stay away from the Alouettes defense.